Good morning, my beautiful babes and babettes. I am your resident active advocate, and I am waggling that finger. So, today we are going to talk about what Lilly left out in the transportation regulations under the AODA. Yay! My original video about this topic was basically a 10-minute rant about my city's accessible busing service called paratransit. But when you're me and have both visual impairment and a heart condition, it's difficult for me to make it to my local bus stop. So I have, and this is my obvious disability privilege coming out, I have never really used the conventional busing service. There was a lot that I failed to mention regarding the regular busing service in most cities now in Ontario because I flat out did not know about these things. But having done my research, I can now inform you that when it comes to using conventional busing, there have been regulations put in place where the bus itself has to be made accessible to various different kinds of people with disabilities. There are buses now that can be lowered down by way of pneumatics for someone who uses a wheelchair to get on the bus. The buses also have an auditory system that tells you what stop they are approaching. So if you are, say, someone who is blind or visually impaired, and you don't know where you are necessarily in the city, I mean, you would get to memorize these things as you use the bus more and more often, of course. But they have auditory cues, like now arriving at Dundas Street, right? That sort of thing. But that is also a regulation that could very easily help non-disabled people. So let's say you're, too absorbed in your phone and you miss the visual cue. You'll get the auditory cue. So if you're not completely zoned out, you're going to know exactly where you are, which is very beneficial to everyone. Other regulations put in place is that on subways and trains, they now have to have grab bars for wheelchair users or people with lowered mobility abilities. Wow, mobility abilities, that's great. To use so that they don't go moving around on the subway or on the bus or on the train. High-speed transit that can also stop on a dime. Those things are in place for the benefit of wheelchair users and people who may have poorer balance. But again, they benefit people without disabilities because which one of us hasn't lost their balance at some point in our life? Which one of us hasn't fallen over at some point, just either not paying attention or being stupid or la-di-da. But when it comes to getting off of the bus or off of the train, stops and bus shelters must now also be made accessible. When we're talking about bus shelters, they have to be wide and they have to have high roofs in order to accommodate someone sitting in a wheelchair sitting in the shelter. They're not going to be able to use the bench that's in the shelter, so they have to have room of their own to be able to, keep themselves out of the bad weather, that sort of thing. So all of these spaces need to be made accessible, but another feature is that road signs and signs that indicate where bus stops are must also be large and legible. If you're me, and if you're short, because I am 5'1", and if you're visually impaired, it's still difficult to read the street signs, even though nowadays they are largely black on white contrast in Ontario. so far as I've noticed anyway, but I have gotten lost going on walks before, even around my old neighborhood where I used to live. And there was actually one point where I'm walking around and I got lost to the point where it was, okay, I have no idea where I am. So we are going to stop. We are going to do a 180 and we are going to retrace our steps in backwards order. I think it probably took me half an hour to get home. That's how far out of my way I had gone. And of course, I picked the hottest day of the year to do this on. I didn't have a hat, didn't have sunblock on, didn't have my phone because I'm an idiot. So I personally think that for my own use, the signs on streets could still use some improvement. But another aspect of this is that at stoplights, at some stoplights though, they will have auditory cues also to tell you when the red light is coming. So I believe it starts beeping or kind of going bung, bung, bung when the red light is about to come up within maybe 10 seconds, I believe it is. So if you're crossing the street and you're not entirely sure how much longer you've got, that system kicks in to tell you how much longer you have. This is not universally the case, though, although Ontario is making it so that it should be universally the case, at least at the busiest intersections or at the widest roads. I have actually gone across a very, very wide road before with someone I trusted at the time to keep me safe. I didn't get hit by a car or anything like that. But we were in about the middle of the road when it started, transitioning. And I'm losing my mind because I don't have very long legs and he's running and I can't keep up with him. So these systems are in place to keep people safe. Not that anyone would intentionally hit someone, say with a visual impairment or using a wheelchair or who has a service animal crossing the road and might not be able to do it very quickly. So obviously people need to watch where they're going, but other people need to watch for them as well. It's a matter of, I think, mutual agreement to keep one another safe, especially on the road, because driving is statistically the most dangerous thing people do on a regular basis. And for someone like me, crossing the street would also be very dangerous if I didn't know what I was doing. That's why these accessibility features are in place. So that is my What Lilly Left Out video on this segment. And tomorrow I will be back with you to talk about what Lilly left out in terms of the web accessibility standards. I actually remembered what I was doing next. Yay! Step in the right direction. All right, thank you for your lovely time and attention. Waggling that finger, and I will see you tomorrow. Mwah!